Good evening. Tonight I've got Vaselesa the Beautiful, which is also sometimes known as Vaselesa the Fair, and this is a story that's often called the Russian Cinderella. But I would say it isn't just Cinderella, it's also got a little bit of Rumpelstiltskin woven into it, as well as just a good old-fashioned horror story with a very, very frightening witch. And since I'm not familiar with the Russian language at all, and it wouldn't be very good for me to try to do a translation, what I've done instead is looked up the oldest English translation that I could find, and that was done by a woman named Edith Hodgetts, and she was born in Russia and lived there until her childhood. We don't know the year, but either as a young adult or teenager, she moved to England, where she lived the rest of her life and died in 1902. She published a book in 1890 called Tales and Legends from the Land of the Tzar, and Vaselesa the Beautiful was the first story in that book. In the introduction to her stories, she mentions that Russian humor is peculiar, and it is not always easy to know whether Ivan is laughing at or with you. And I found that to be true when I was reading this story. It is funny, but in a very dry, sort of chuckling kind of way, not quite out loud, and just a little bit teasing in its humor. So I like that quite a lot. So I hope you get comfortable. And I've got my marshmallow all ready to toast here. And please enjoy Vaselesa the Beautiful. In a certain kingdom, there lived a very rich nobleman with his wife and a beautiful daughter named Vasilisa, whom all her friends called Vaselesa the Beautiful, on account of her loveliness and sweet ways. I like that she's called beautiful not just because of her physical appearance, but also because of her personality. When she was but a child of 8, her mother became so dangerously ill that all the doctors gave her up and said that she now lay on her deathbed. One day, she called Vasilisa to her bedside, and giving her a lovely little doll, said, "Listen to me, my child, and remember your mother's dying words. I am about to depart this life for another, a brighter and far happier one. With a dying mother's love do I leave you this doll, which is very different from others, for she is enchanted. Keep her, my darling, and show her to no one, but when ill luck befalls you, ask her to help you. Now farewell, Vasilisa. Be a good girl. Obey your father. Love him and cheer him when in trouble. Goodbye, little one." With these words, the mother kissed her child and expired. This is Russian literature, so that counts as a happy scene. Some years after the death of his wife, the nobleman thought he had better marry again on his child's account, for he loved his little daughter dearly, and wanted someone to take care of her, as he had very little time to do so himself. Many women came in his way, yet he cared for none. At last, a very rich widow took his fancy, with 2 rather pretty daughters of Vasilisa's own age. He, thinking her a good housewife as well as a kind mother, married her. But alas! She turned out to be a very different sort of woman, and like a good many stepmothers, disliked her stepdaughter immensely. This is the classic Cinderella pattern. You could see it. We've got the widower father who marries another woman who has 2 daughters, which is very much like Perrault's Tale and also Aschenputtel, the version that was recorded by the Brothers Grimm. And I don't have stepchildren, but I mean, I've spent plenty of time around kids my whole life, coming from a large family and everything. I just don't understand how it's possible to hate a child. Like, I can understand why when families are combined, there's naturally going to be a little bit of tension, especially if you're dealing with teenagers, and that's got to be difficult to negotiate. But I just don't understand how someone could flat out hate a child that had been brought into their life. It's just beyond me. She hated Vasilisa because she was the most beautiful child on the whole face of the earth, and because she was a good, obedient little girl. Her stepsisters, of course, very shortly began to hate her too. They snubbed her, made her do all their work for them, and tried to worry her in every possible way, but all in vain. Vasilisa grew more beautiful every day, and did not seem to mind in the least all their snubbing, and all the hard work they made her do. Why was this? Was it because she kept the doll which her mother had given her? Or was it the dying woman's blessing that kept her from harm? We shall see by and by. I like that little rhetorical aside. It gives the story a philosophical and kind of mysterious air, and I guess it also gives kids a chance to weigh in the middle of the story. You can ask them to make predictions, and yeah, that does feel very Russian, doesn't it? I can't quite put my finger on why, but that sort of philosophical musing without offering a concrete answer just seems to have that Slavic flair to it. Years passed on. The beautiful Vasilisa was now old enough to be a bride. She was always surrounded by rich and handsome lovers, while the two stepsisters were left out in the cold, for no one looked at them when Vasilisa was near. Naturally, the stepmother became very angry and told the young men that she would not let Vasilisa marry before her own daughters were comfortably settled. The young men, on hearing this, departed in haste and troubled the nobleman's house no more. Smart move, boys. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I can't imagine that anybody would want that mother-in-law, as well as bossy, lazy, and selfish wives. The stepmother was still more disgusted when she saw that she had turned them off altogether, and began to vent her rage on Vasilisa, calling her a flirt, telling her that she kept all the young men away from her sisters. However, Vasilisa did not mind. It so happened that the nobleman had to go to a very distant kingdom for some months on very important business, while his wife moved to another house not quite so large as the first one, near a dark and dreary forest, in the middle of which stood a little hut, and in it lived an old witch who was said to eat up everybody who came in her way, just as though they were so many chickens. The stepmother had heard of this dreadful old witch, and thought if she kept on sending Vasilisa into the forest every day for something or other, she would soon be got rid of. However, Vasilisa always came home safely, thanks to her friend the doll. But one evening, the stepmother gave each of the girls some work to do, telling them to have a certain amount of it finished by the following morning. One had to begin making lace, the other to go on with her knitting, while Vasilisa had to spin. The stepmother, after giving them a small piece of candle to work by, left them and went to spend the evening with some friends, not forgetting, however, to tell them that if the candle should go out, one of them would have to go to the witch for light. And she looked meaningly at Vasilisa. The girls worked a long time, and then the candle went out, leaving them in darkness. "What shall we do?" cried one of the stepsisters. "Mamma has locked up all the light, and our work is not half done. As for going to Madam Witch, I shan't. I dare say I can manage to go on working by the gleam of my knitting needles." "I shan't go either. I shall be able to finish this bit of lace by the light of my pins," said the other. "Vasilisa must go." And they pushed the poor girl out of the room and locked the door after her. Vasilisa went straight to her own room and told her doll what her sisters wanted her to do. This is a bit similar to Aschenputtel, where in the German version of Cinderella, she was able to go to the tree and talk to the little dove that had been sent by her mother and ask for help. And it's interesting that in these Eastern European versions of the story, she does get help that's sent by the mother, whereas, say, in Perrault's version, Cinderella is pretty much on her own until the fairy godmother shows up. "Don't be afraid, my darling," answered the doll, "but go wheresoever you are sent, and fear nothing. As long as you carry me about with you, you are safe." Vasilisa put the doll in her pocket and ran out of the house into the forest, singing as she went. Suddenly, a white horseman rode past her on a white horse, and as he rode, everything around him became white. Vasilisa was greatly astonished at this, and began wondering what he could be, when another horseman rode past, clad in red, sitting on a red horse, and as he rode along, everything became red. But he too soon disappeared. After she had walked a little farther, she met another horseman dressed in black, on a black horse, and immediately all became quite dark around her. Vasilisa had now not far to go, but very soon arrived at the little hut where Madam Witch lived. This hut and its surroundings were most peculiar, as well as alarming. In the first place, the hut itself stood on chickens' legs, and round it was a high wall made of human bones, on the top of which was a collection of human skulls, lighted up inside with rays of light streaming out of the eyes, showing Vaselesa the way. In the original text, the phrase translated as Madam Witch is Baba Yaga, and this is a folkloric figure from Slavic legend, and she can be horrible or helpful depending on the story and her mood. She's kind of like a force of nature. She tends to live in the forests, and she can be terrifying. She might eat you. She might help you. It really just depends. So she's not evil so much as dangerous, and she has, no reason, no loyalty to humanity. So the human characters who encounter her could have any kind of fate whatsoever. On the gate were human legs instead of bolts, and human hands instead of a lock. Vasilisa became greatly alarmed on seeing all these dreadful things, and would gladly have run away had she not heard a loud noise in the air, and on looking up, beheld the old witch riding on a mortar with a pestle in her hand. Very different from riding on a broom, but I guess, I don't know, if a witch can ride on a broom, why can't she ride on a mortar and a pestle?
Phoo, phoo! I smell the blood of a Russian. Who is here?
She cried, descending. Vasilisa came forward, saying in a low, trembling voice, "It is I, madam. My stepsisters have sent me to you for light."
"All right, my child,"
cried the witch.
"I know them well. So, they want light, do they? Very well. But you will have to work for me first, and stay here for a little while. If you do everything well and are a good girl, I shall give you one of those lighted skulls to take back to your sisters."
"But I beg your pardon, madam," said Vasilisa again. "My sisters are waiting for the light. They want to finish some work for their mother."
"No, they're not doing anything of the kind. They only wanted to get rid of you."
"I like Baba Yaga. She tells the truth." "I'm sure you must be mistaken, madam. I know that they are waiting."
"Well, let them wait. Do them good. As for my being mistaken, not I. Anyhow, I don't let people have my skulls for nothing. You will have to stay with me and work, and if you do everything properly, as I mentioned before, I shall give you a skull. On the other hand, if you do not do what I tell you, your head will be put on that wall with the rest, for there happens to be a vacancy."
Vasilisa did not at all like the prospect of possessing one of the things she had so greatly dreaded, nor did she care very much about the invitation or the look of things in general. However, she wisely said nothing, but followed the witch into the hut. This is fantastic advice for young people. Flowing with the river is often better than fighting against the current, and Vasilisa is in this predicament, and she's just going to have to see it through. Fighting against it will do her no good.
"Bring me all that there is in the stove," said the witch, "and put it down on the table before me, for I am hungry as a wolf."
And I'm not hungry as a wolf, but I am definitely ready for this lovely, perfectly toasted marshmallow. Those of you who are members of the Society of Slow Toasters will appreciate this. It's nicely crisped on the outside, a little bit brown. And very stretchy and gooey in the middle. Oh yes, that one was very good. But then this fire has been going for a while, so there's a lot of really nice coals glowing at the bottom. We had the fire built up larger earlier when the kids were awake, which makes me happy because it means that I can really get a properly toasted marshmallow. If the fire's too hot, then the marshmallow either just burns or just melts very quickly and falls off, and that's no good. No good at all. I'm assuming Baba Yaga doesn't like marshmallows. But that's okay. It means she'll never steal mine.
Bring me all that there is in the stove, said the witch, and put it down on the table before me, for I am as hungry as a wolf.
Then I hope you will not eat me up.
I will if you don't make haste.
Vasilisa laughed and, running to the stove, brought out everything there. This was chiefly human flesh. She brought out some honey and wine, which the witch at once consumed, giving Vasilisa now and then something which she herself did not care for. After telling Vasilisa to be up early next morning, she went to bed. Early next morning, Vasilisa woke and, peeping out of the window, saw the light in the skulls slowly darken. As she stood there looking out, the same white horseman rode past, and immediately everything became quite light. Madam Witch rose, telling Vasilisa to clean the yard, sweep the hut, cook the dinner, and peel 100 pounds of potatoes. But if this were not done, she told her that she would eat her up and have no mercy on her. After that, she went into the yard, said something that Vasilisa did not understand, and the mortar with the pestle descended from the clouds. Up went the witch high into the air, and was out of sight in a moment, leaving Vasilisa alone in her glory. She at once set to work to explore her surroundings, when she suddenly recollected the work she had to do. So she ran to begin, when what was her surprise to see that the doll had done it all for her. The doll very much is representing, like she's taking the place of the mother, because that's absolutely classic thing where, you give your kids a list of chores to do and then they just don't do them. And so you're stuck with the choice. You're like, okay, my kids didn't do the work that I asked them to. I could yell, I can nag, I can punish, and then they'll do it resentfully and they might even do it wrong, or I can just do it myself and it'll at least be done quickly and done right. But then I'll have taught my children entirely the wrong lesson, that if they're slackers, then I'll just do their work for them. It's a conundrum, but it's obviously one the doll doesn't mind, because she's not a real mother, but a magical object. So wouldn't it be nice to have a doll who did all of our chores? "Oh, my darling little helper," cried Vasilisa. "You have saved me all the trouble. What on earth should I have done without you? You have still to lay the table for dinner, and be a good girl. Remember that, and try to please Madam Witch in every possible way." So saying, the doll climbed into Vasilisa's pocket. All was quite ready when Madam Witch arrived. She found everything beautifully clean and cheerful.
"Have you done all the work I gave you to do?"
she asked on entering. "Look and answer for yourself, good mother," returned Vasilisa, smiling brightly. The witch gave a quick look around, and I must say was not altogether pleased, for there was no fault to find whatever.
"It is very well done, my child,"
she said, sitting down to her dinner. After she had eaten enough, she went to bed, telling Vasilisa what she had to do next day. When morning came, Madam Witch rode out in her mortar with the pestle in her hand, while Vasilisa, or rather the doll, did all the work. The day passed as did the first. When night came, the witch returned, and had, as before, no fault to find. As she was eating her dinner, Vasilisa stood quite quietly by her side, looking at her, but saying nothing.
"Why do you not speak to me today, my child?"
the witch asked, in surprise. "Because I was thinking."
"What was it? Out with it."
"Well, to tell the truth, I am rather puzzled about something, and want to ask you some questions, and shall be very glad if you will answer them for me."
"Fire away, but mind, not too many questions, or you will soon get old."
"I only want to ask you 3 questions. First, as I was coming to you for light, a white horseman passed me on the way. He sat on a white horse, and all around him became white. Who was he?"
"His name was Day."
Then came another horseman clad in red. Who was he?"
"He was Sunset."
Then a third passed me in black. Who was he?"
"He was Night."
Vasilisa remained silent for some time.
"Well,"
asked the witch, laughing,
"have you no more to ask me about?"
"No. You yourself told me not to ask too much, for fear of my growing old before my time."
"Very well, then. Now that you have asked me all you wish to know, I will return the compliment and ask you some questions too. Tell me, why is it that you are always so good and so quick and ready to obey me, and never make a mistake by any chance? And also, why is it that I am so fond of you and would not hurt a hair of your head?
I suppose it is my dear mother's blessing that helps me in all I do.
Well then, look here, my dear. I don't want any blessedness in my hut. I think you have been here quite long enough, so you had better go back to your stepmother and sisters with my compliments, and take one of my skulls with you.
I like Baba Yaga. She's just like, you're too good and I'm getting sick of it. Get on out of here. So saying, the witch gave Vasilisa one of the horrid-looking things and saw her off. Away ran the girl, thinking the witch quite the most charming old lady she had ever met. It was growing very dark now, and had it not been for the lighted skull, she never would have found her way. She ran on until day broke in upon her, and the skull darkened. But as soon as night galloped past, the skull lighted up again, showing Vaselesa the way. On the following evening, she arrived at the gates of her home. All was in total darkness. She was about to throw away the lighted skull and enter the house, when suddenly, to her great surprise, a voice like thunder came from the skull, saying, "Throw me not away, but take me unto thy stepmother." We're now going to see that Vasilisa has earned a powerful totem by pleasing, or at least failing to anger, a powerful being like Baba Yaga. She looked up at the window, and seeing that there was no light anywhere, she took the skull in with her. Her people went out of their way to be as nice as possible. They embraced her tenderly, telling her that they had been in utter darkness during the evenings the moment she had left them. Whatever light was brought to them went out immediately. "I hope your light will not go out too," cried the stepmother, as she set down the skull on a little table in a corner. "I hardly think that likely," replied Vasilisa. Meanwhile, the fiery eyes pierced the stepmother and stepsisters with the hot flames that now and then darted out from them. The three women were terribly frightened and tried to hide themselves in corners so as to save themselves from being burnt, but all in vain. They became so fearfully scorched by dreadful flames from the eyes that towards morning they were nothing but a heap of ashes. Whew, boy, that escalated quickly. All this time, the flaming eyes never once so much as looked at Vasilisa, who stood there unable to help her stepmother and sisters. After burying the skull in the earth, she locked up the house, gave the servants a holiday, and went to live with an old woman in town who was formerly her nurse, where she could wait for her father's return. One day, Vasilisa said to the old woman, "I find it very dull, Ivana, sitting here like a grand lady without having any work to do. I wish you would let me help you sometimes in your housework." "But why, dear angel, should you want to spoil your pretty hands with work?" "Well, Ivana, I don't want to live idle. If you won't let me help you, I wish you would buy me some of the very best flax you can get, and I will spin." I respect Vasilisa's work ethic. The old nurse sighed, but had to obey. Vasilisa set to work and began to spin. Her work was so fine that when the time came to weave it, nobody would touch it for fear of breaking it. Vasilisa was very unhappy and tried to do it herself, but failed. So she went to her doll and asked it to do it for her. Next morning, all was done. This shows how Vasilisa is maturing because she's no longer totally dependent on the doll. She's now doing her share of the work, and she's using her skills, and she's starting to appreciate the value of work itself. She doesn't just want to sit around or play around all day. She actually wants to contribute. So this is what a good mother should do. Like, again, if you think of the doll taking the place of the mother, Vasilisa should do what she's able to do, but then the things that she can't finish, the doll steps in and helps her, and that's exactly what good mothers should do. Never did human eyes see such beautiful stuff. In fact, it was so much admired that Vasilisa, or rather her doll, set to work and made some beautiful linen, which could almost pass through the eye of the smallest needle. When it was all ready, Vasilisa told her nurse to try to sell the stuff and keep the money for herself. "Why, my dear child," said the old nurse, looking at the linen in surprise,
"this is fit for no one but the king himself. I will take it to him at once. Why, it is more like silk than linen."
Off went the old woman to the palace and asked to see the king, who ordered her to be brought before him at once. He was delighted with the stuff and asked the price of it.
"I will let your majesty have it for nothing."
However, the king would not hear of this, but gave her many rich gifts in return. This is the game of chivalry. You would bring something of value to your lord or whoever outranked you, and then, just offer it freely, saying, "Oh, this is my humble offering, my lord. I would never dream of charging you." And then in return, the way this game is played is that the lord is then supposed to generously reward such a humble gift from a subject. And so this is showing that both the old lady and the king understand how to play this game properly. Shortly after, the king ordered shirts to be made for him of this beautiful linen, but nobody would touch it. They said it was quite impossible to cut or sew it, as it was much too fine for any human hands to finger. The king then ordered the old woman to come before him. "You could spin and weave this linen," said the king. "Therefore, you will also have to make me these shirts, as no one in the kingdom will touch the stuff."
"I did not make the linen, your majesty, but a beautiful young lady who is staying with me did it by way of amusement."
"Well then, let her make the shirts. Someone must make them now that I've got the linen." The nurse shows good character here by not taking credit for work that she didn't do. And I bet she also realizes that good things will come if she maybe, can introduce this beautiful young lady to the king who's already impressed with her work. I also appreciate that the king is a thrifty guy. Like, he's already bought this linen. And so the idea that he's not going to get his value out of it, he's like, "No, come on, I want my shirts. I paid for this stuff." Good for you, king. Way to spend your money properly. Away went the old nurse and told Vasilisa all that the king had said. "I knew that would be the case. No one has the patience to touch this stuff. It is too fine, I suppose," laughed Vasilisa, as she locked herself up in her room. Of course, she did not think for a moment of making these shirts herself, but told her little doll to do so. How convenient that doll was, to be sure. In a very short time, 3 dozen shirts lay by her side, so charmingly worked that it was quite impossible to see the sewing. Next morning, the old nurse took the shirts to the king, who was simply delighted with them and would not rest until he saw this wonderful girl who did everything that no one else could do. Meanwhile, Vasilisa, after dressing herself in a beautiful satin dress, looking like a rose freshly plucked from the garden, sat by the open window as though waiting for something. Suddenly, she heard the sound of wheels. She looked up and saw one of the king's carriages drive up to the door. Vasilisa flew to answer the bell. "Does the young lady who made the king's shirts live here?" asked a footman with powdered hair. Vasilisa told him that she was the one, so off she drove to the palace, but no sooner had she made her appearance at court when all eyes were turned to her, full of surprise at her wonderful beauty. As for the king himself, he fell straightway in love with her, and in a very short time they were married. As the king happened to be young and handsome, Vasilisa did not object. Would she have married him if he was old or ugly? Vasilisa's father soon returned and was overjoyed at the news. He lived the rest of his days with his beloved daughter and the king, her husband. The old woman was properly taken care of and lived in a nice little house close to the palace, where she could see Vasilisa as often as she pleased. The beautiful young queen became more lovely every day and kept the doll carefully locked up to the end of her days and showed it to no one for fear of its getting broken. That seems wise. That was the advice that her mother gave her from the beginning. So it shows that Vasilisa wasn't just beautiful, but she's pretty smart. And I would say that is really the main characteristic of a Cinderella story is you will have usually a young woman, although sometimes a young man, but usually a young woman who is in a bad situation. She's not being properly cared for by the people who are supposed to look after her. But she uses her cleverness and her wits and her kindness and her good character. So it's not just about the physical beauty. That's not enough to get you there. She also has to be someone who is worth admiring. And I think Vasilisa is. She manages to charm Baba Yaga, and she is kind and respectful to the woman who cared for her as a child and then looks after her in her old age. In fact, I think, I don't know if there's I know that some old movies have been done of this, and it might be interesting to watch those, but I think that if I was casting for a movie version of this, it would be interesting to cast the same actress in the role of Baba Yaga and then Ivana, the old nurse. Kind of let the audience decide for themselves if they're actually the same person or if it's just a double casting. I thought Baba Yaga was really funny. I was surprised by that, where she's just like kind of grossed out by, she's like, oh, you're too good. You're just, get out of here. I can't stand this. Like, I don't even want to hurt you because you're just nice. So that probably shows that the mother's magic is somehow restraining Baba Yaga in some way. But then also, I mean, Vasilisa herself fulfilled all of Baba Yaga's terms. So maybe that's what bound Baba Yaga and made it so that she couldn't eat her up. If you know anything about this kind of folklore, I'm interested to learn more about it. I'm always trying to look around for stories from places that are not familiar to me. If you know any other good stories about Baba Yaga, please tell me, because if she is this entertaining every time, then I'm a fan. Count me in. And yeah, so tell me what other stories you'd like to hear soon, especially if they're from parts of the world that I haven't covered yet. I really, really do want to spread out as much as possible and challenge myself a bit with my knowledge of folklore, and hopefully bring you some more entertaining fireside stories. And as always, thanks for listening.